Obsidian Kingdom. Search for the abandoned mine. So one thing I was going to say I really actually like about this game is very little of the story seems to be side. Well, no. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of fluff content. You know, every story quest is its kind of standalone thing. Intruders! Someone go let the boss know we got company.
Those aren't Kingsmen. They're just idiots in the wrong place at the wrong time. We don't need to waste the boss's time with them. Kill them and get back to work. This has to be where Keegan is holding Prince Paoloshan.
I understand you want to help people. But how can you so readily risk your life all the time?
If I don't help, who will?
You can't help anyone if you... never mind.
Something about the wind Fae here seems off. I better be careful around them.
Wait, where are the wind Fae?
These...
Oh, you're right. They have some kind of, like, pall over them.
Yeah. So... Nature and fire. Okay, Peony. Let's see. Would be good. Oh. No, we need the fire. Oh.
I noticed that you haven't been using the new puncher guy.
Because I don't need wind right now.
Pisha?
Also, we are stuck with Aerontis in the party.
Oh, okay.
At least for a little while.
Because she's the one that has the quest or the related quests.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, they're being invigorated.
There we go. What's up with these guys? Primal Corruption increases various aspects. Okay, so their stats are just boosted. Oops. Alright, whatever.
Now, some people say Vigor, don't they?
No. It is absolutely 100% vigor. As in vigorous. Anybody that says vigor is just wrong. Like labyrinth. What does that even mean?
But when your father used to say labyrinth, that was actually mixing some of the lettering.
Oh,
around.
That's what the mimic does.
Oh, they became another dragon?
I thought they would just mimic the element. No, they just become it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to check its stats, but that's interesting. That could be a lot better.
Well, it lets you duplicate and...
Okay, so its stats aren't quite as good, but it can fly. It's fire. Yeah, good enough for me. Okay. Going back to the topic from last episode, my parents never really brought me to haunted hay rides, haunted mazes, haunt anything, really.
Well, I always told you about how I loved that, what was it, the Headless Horseman hayride, right? Where they actually had this big wagon for everyone to ride in.
Yeah.
And they did have a guy on a horse, dressed in such a way that it looked like he didn't have a head. And he would come around and try to... He would very lightly brush his gloved hand across people's heads.
Yeah, I mean, that's not so bad.
While riding alongside the carriage. It wasn't a carriage, it was a legit giant wooden wagon that was covered too. But midway through the ride, you'd be let off and you get to choose one pumpkin per person. It was a paid ride.
Yeah.
But that's how we would get our pumpkins for the year. And they would always have that section where they talk about, you know, flee across the bridge, you know, the horseman won't be able to follow. And then the carriage crosses the bridge and the horseman rears his horse up on the opposite side and trots off. And then when I got to see the, I think I had seen the animated Sleepy Hollow, the Disney one from the 1940s.
Yeah.
The Ichabod Crane one. I mean,
I don't think I've ever actually
Ichabod
seen that
Crane.
one.
You haven't seen that one?
No.
Oh, it's a classic.
I mean, everything is a classic. I think I just wasn't super into the idea of it.
I think the version that we had was part of the Melody Time VHS. It was like a conglomeration of a lot of their older works. I think they also had Johnny Appleseed and Little Toot.
I think that, man, I think most of the reasons why, once again, I never did certain things over the years is just because my parents didn't want to spend money on it, so the alternative was to hope it shows up at Blockbuster or like the thrift shop, because the we lived up in New Mexico. We lived in Los Alamos in New Mexico, which was pretty far removed from a lot of things. And without the internet really being much of a thing back in the 90s, that really didn't mean that there was a whole lot of like distribution of goods. Let's see. Not in the way that like there is now. And so, you know, the theater, I think the theater still had like a decent selection. But I don't remember there being a whole lot of cool stuff growing up. And maybe, once again, a lot of it just has to do with the fact that, you know, I only had... my parents would only bring us to, like, certain places. Let's see. Do we want to just boost this guy? Everybody gets a rage enchantment. That's just how this works.
That's true. My family went to a lot of festivals and events.
We would too, but it was only the free stuff. I will have to ask my parents at some point if we were that poor off, or if they were just that stingy.
You know it's the latter.
I know it's the latter.
They don't even have a couch upstairs.
Yeah, they don't really believe in
seating.
couches.
And they got rid of all your books. I wanted to read them.
But so, from their perspective, it wasn't in theaters, so it wasn't convenient. We couldn't rent anything because there must have been a Blockbuster, but I don't think we ever went to it because it was easier to just go to.
We had a Blockbuster
it wasn't
near
the
us.
thrift store. There were two churches that we would go to, I think.
They had movies?
Yeah, one of them had kind of like a library system.
But they wouldn't have cool movies, would they?
For me, they were cool.
What were they then? Was it all VeggieTales or something?
No, like they had Swiss Family Robinson, the like animated series.
Ah, okay.
Which like I thought was the coolest shit ever. Going off and living on an island and building like crazy treehouse mansion nonsense because, you know, fantasy island survival. But I thought it was rad.
Those shows with families never really appealed to me. The whole Lost in Space, Swiss Family Robinson.
I liked
Jetsons
the
business.
fantasy of it. Let's see. Yeah, Lost in Space was kind of boring. I sort of liked the... Well, Yeah, no, I don't really like Lost in Space. The old version was boring. The movie that we saw was scared the living daylights out of me. And then, The most recent reboot was just kind of dull. You remember that, right?
Yeah, I was watching it. Didn't they also have like an adopted family member and everyone was arguing all the time and the parents were having a rocky relationship and I think they just injected a lot of drama into it.
Yeah. And that's been something that's been bothering me about a lot of media lately. Sorry. Trying to tell if there's a spider. I've been playing too many games and
With spiders.
things with spiders. Yeah, it's not great.
Well, we did have a number of large ones scuttling about, but I haven't seen any of as of late.
I felt what I thought was something scuttling at my feet, and I
Could have been a
got
hair.
very uncomfortable. Yeah, I could have been a hair, could have been any number of things.
Yeah, I've noticed that about television series in general as of late. We were discussing it the other day when we were watching things like Umbrella Academy and such, but it seems like modern television and modern series and modern narratives, I think people took a page out of the Marvel book of people don't like DC characters because they're too perfect and idealistic. We're going to give them a bunch of flaws. Except in Marvel, those flaws were balanced with redeemable traits or
Character
charming
development, or yeah.
character quirks and stuff. Whereas it seems like everything recently, like, it's a lot of arguing. It's a lot of arguments. It's a lot of misunderstandings. It's a lot of drama. And the characters themselves are so stubborn and detestable at times. You start to wonder, do I like any of them at all? Huh?
Yeah. I've been having that problem. Come back. I wish to fight you.
And I think it's also endemic to the whole, like, we want to make our series edgy and dark.
But it's like, edginess for the sake of just being edgy isn't actually fun.
Mm-mm.
It, like, you
lose
can
the fun and
have
the
a
wonder.
dark show that still manages to be fun. What was I... It was a series or a game recently, and I'm absolutely blanking. Dungeon Meshi, my favorite manga. I know, I talk about it too much. I will never stop. That turtle is obscene. So, thing I really like about Dungeon Meshi is that it alternates between being incredibly dark and yet equally comical at the same time. Like, some chapters will start off delightful and then just end on, like, the most bitter note ever, and none of it feels forced.
There are issues, though, where you run into these bizarre swings.
Yeah,
In a
it
series
has to
where
be
the-
handled incredibly well. In my opinion, part of the reason why I'm so glowing of it is because it is so well written. Let's see. I think I can do anything there.
Whoa, what is up with...
They're hasted.
Yeah. Just moving so swiftly. So, the interesting thing about that harpy is they would have to flap about as fast, if not faster.
To stay
stay-
exactly still. Yeah.
That's... Because if you look at the owl, it makes sense. Their wings are... It's believable that they'd be able to carry that much mass on those two wings. But for a human, like, for what kind of wingspan would you need for a human to stay aloft? It's enormous.
Yep.
I think you'd have to have at least like 10 feet off each side.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, like, wings are actually pretty long to begin with, if that makes sense. Like, I was looking up average wingspans of, like, eagles and condors, and it's not short.
Mm-hmm. But those are also for small, compact creatures.
Yeah.
With hollow bones. And a humanoid creature like a harpy, on the other hand, would be really heavy.
Ah. Why? Hurts.
But I know, can't look too deeply into it. Because then nothing fanciful would ever make any sense.
Fantasy is dead. Okay. But yeah, how many series have we watched where it's just kind of like, yeah, all of the characters are just bitter and angry start to finish the entire way through the show, and you're just kind of like, I wish I liked you, because then I might actually get into this show.
Oh, yeah. Like, we had watched our Altered Carbon, and then we were going on the second season and just couldn't stand it.
It sucked. It wasn't fun. Everybody was just miserable and angry all the time.
I felt really bad for Poe. He was one of the enjoyable parts of the first.
And it was one of those where not only was everybody bitter and angry all the time, but, like, the characters that should have been interesting, unique, strong, so on and so forth, weren't. So, like, I really wanted the main character in that one to not be terrible. And he was just kind of consistently bad at his job.
Oh.
What's up?
Cooking show.
Hey.
The actress was in... Wait, what? Is that what you were like, hey?
No, I got it.
It's the actress.
Yeah.
For the detective in that one. I knew she was a detective in something we had seen.
Yeah, Mendoza?
Or, I don't know.
I think so.
We'll have to look it up. We've been watching a cooking show. And that is something that is just purely enjoyable to watch. It's just because the judges, for the most part, they have, like, a lot of constructive criticism and are nice.
Gah! What is that smell? I feel like just breathing the air in here will make me sick. This is really bad. Perhaps we should find another approach. This toxic aura is not natural. What are they up to in here?
Farting.
The miasma, the flatulence,
The stank.
The
It is
stank.
returned.
So what do you think they're up to? Is that just rancid water from their efforts to excavate the place? Or is it kind of like a weird energy source? Or is it the liquefied form of the glowing rocks? And some of it's become a vapor that is noxious? What do you think?
Don't know. Let's see. A cycle not for anybody else. As it turns out, Mimic Doll could, like, become a Beetle Tar, for example, which is actually really good. Let's see.
Ooh.
So we got some nature, some wind, some water.
water. Oh, nature and water are both weak to ice.
Yeah. Okay.
And it looks like there is an ice barrel over there. Oh, there is an ice enemy down there.
Yeah. It's too much of a crapshoot for me to really have a plan here. So I'll just go with whatever. But yeah, I fully agree with the thing about the cooking shows that we've been watching lately have been just so relentlessly wholesome that it's fun to watch. I don't hate anybody, and you're kind of just rooting for your favorites as opposed to despising, you know, 50% of the cast and just being like, get over yourself so this story can go on. I
look back on my years watching The Bachelor or The Bachelorette with my mom, because she was watching it from the start when it first began. 20 years ago? No, not 20 years ago. No, maybe 20 years ago. It's been a long time. But they always play up the drama between, I mean, because it's multiple people vying for a single person. So inevitably there's going to be drama between them. I think the whole concept of the series is just disgusting.
Yeah,
but
it's gross.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. I don't think I will ever willingly watch The Bachelor.
Uh-huh.
Let's see.
Because it's just awfully weird for people to be rooting for their favorite. Then again, how is it any different from people shipping characters in a television show or an anime, other than the fact that it's real life and it's real people?
So I think part of it is because in stories, ships at least kind of make sense, and there's, you know, maybe there's kind of like the love triangle or whatever, but it's not a game show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing that always gets me about
game shows. Just do not feel.
Yeah, a lot of these competition game shows, it's real people. So with The Bachelor, that's a marriage. What kind of lesson are they actually teaching with that? You know, say if you had your... Well, I mean, you probably weren't terribly affected by this, but like, young girl your age watching The Bachelor, what kind of lessons would you pick up from that sort of thing?
Well, okay, so I suppose having watched it for a number of years, since I was a late kid or early tween or something, I mean, definitely I soured to it over the years, and it was one of those things where it's just like, why do people find enjoyment in this? But I think it started with The Bachelor, and then they started alternating between Bachelor and Bachelorette. So, and it was interesting because definitely they got attractive people. They wanted people to be attractive so that they would have their little pool parties and whatnot. And it's interesting because, and I think about this myself, so many of the dates that they had arranged, because what they would do is they would have the Bachelor or the Bachelorette choose a couple of people to go on an excursion with. And obviously as people were eliminated, it would get, you know, fewer and fewer people would come on these trips until finally it was just one-on-one dates. But these dates were, they would go all around the world or all around the country to these destinations. You know, they'd go skiing or boating, or they'd, you know, go to a fancy restaurant or do like horseback riding, you know, just hosts of fun events. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe they'd even do crazy things like karaoke or something. And sure, I think people enjoyed that just to see other people having fun doing something that they couldn't do. In a way, if you think about it, it was like vacation escapism something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there was the added element of who did the Bachelor or the Bachelorette mesh with the most and like on these excursions. Who did they form a closer bond with? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. But it's just like every one of those shows always kind of pushed this weird feeling of like romance can be done in a weekend on camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also, think about it too. Under normal circumstances, you're not going to be able to go on all of these lavish getaways. Most of your time with your significant other is going to be spent
farting in bed.
Oh my gosh. That's accurate for you, definitely.
Yep, true to life.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. There's, household chores. There's cooking, which cooking can be fun.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do with a significant other, but it's not all vacation mode all the time. Unless you are extremely wealthy. And I think I have this problem with a lot of people. Gosh. I hate saying people with high-end lifestyles, because that's makes me feel weird and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
But that, from my perspective, it doesn't feel great when I see, like, people flaunting their lifestyles too much. Because I feel like it creates unhealthy expectations for everyone else.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But if you think about it, that's the very reason why people enjoy watching Jersey Shore or the Kardashians, and thank goodness I've never watched those shows. But they want to see into another way of living, into this fantasy world where people just have a bunch of money. I
think that's pretty much it. People just want to know what it would be like if you were stupidly rich. Which, like...
The other sad thing, though, is if you think about, even from, like, a fantasy perspective or a historical perspective, we often focus on the royalty and their military campaigns and their marriages and things like that. But you don't really talk about the peasants.
Yeah.
I've
definitely been reading a lot of those, like, weird Otome game manga, which is all just, like...
The nobility.
Yeah, the nobility. Except for one takeaway that I've picked up from it is, like, being nobility is stupid. And, like, it really seemed like upper middle class was always kind of the primo place to be. And that there was kind of a certain point where just being the nobility was actually more to your detriment than a positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because maybe back in the olden days, favorably, you'd be part of a trade family that had a lot of power and money and influence, but not so much that you would be forced into political marriages, infighting, squabbling, and, potentially getting executed by an usurper or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But no, I guess the reasoning why I'm so, like, adverse to overly glamorizing any specific lifestyle is I think the amount of people that go into Twitch or YouTube or game design or whatever thinking that it's going to be this, like, magical experience, if that makes any sense.
The interesting thing is, once again, what we were talking about with you only ever hear about the best.
Yeah. Oh, that's a... Gosh, we really need that podcast. That was actually an interesting topic, though. So, I've been looking up my Twitch statistics and YouTube statistics, and, like, how do I stack up? Because that was actually something I was kind of curious about. I'm apparently rank 8,000. Like, I'm the 8,000th largest streamer.
8,000's pretty good considering on YouTube, aren't you in the, like, 30,000th?
I have no idea where I am. And admittedly, like, this is based on a number of factors, including, like, views and stuff, so it's not just all like, follower count. But, like, if you think of it this way, there are only, let's say 8,000 other people bigger than me on Twitch and YouTube. Like, that's That's not much, and I'm pretty small.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that boggles my mind a little bit, is that, like, I see a lot of creators being like, I'm gonna
We
be this,
definitely
like...
do not live a lavish lifestyle.
No!
Not in the slightest. I mean, we are just holed up in our house.
Yeah. And, I mean, admittedly, this year sets a different standard no matter what. But
Oh, definitely, definitely. I suppose we have an endless supply of games.
Yep.
That is...
Which is lavish in its own way. Let's see.
But yeah, I really think that because people only see the head animators or the, you know, awesome devs and creators of such and such, or the movie stars, or the singers, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
You don't really get that much exposure to people at lower levels of or rungs of the ladder.
And
the struggles that they have to endure to get to that position.
That is something I absolutely wish we got more of.
And the other thing, too, is think of American Idol and stuff, where you do have people who are sometimes hobbyists that just have a really good voice and they've practiced a bit.
Yeah.
Or you do have the people that they might have some small gigs singing at a local bar, but they never really were able to get noticed for a record label. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they go on this show and they're, you know, pushed into stardom. Granted, it seems like only a couple have actually maintained it over the years.
But I think from my perspective, I really wish there was more media that focused on the middle of the road people. Like, not people that are objectively kind of bad at what they do, but people that are just...
Well, that's the thing. There can be people that are excellent and amazing at what they do, but they just don't have the...
fame, notoriety, marketing, so on and so forth.
Fame, notoriety, marketing, contacts, network,
Yeah.
etc. to get there.
I just remember years ago, in middle school, I was in it was like a graphic design class, but we did all sorts. It was actually quite cool. But one of my favorite things in the class was one day the teacher just brought in, holy crap, look at this. 530 damage, goodbye bird thing.
Woo!
Dang. Just brought in a graphic designer that, like, you know, just worked locally, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, seeing that, yeah, somebody can do this for a living, and not even, like, spend crazy money doing it.
Oh gosh, and think of just how much technology has changed even in the last 10 years.
Yep. 15 years, I think, at this point? More? Yeah, little bit more than more. But yeah, she did, like, anime stuff and, like, fantasy bits. I can only vaguely remember what she did, but it was definitely, like, more on the anime scale. Which was a surprise to me, because I was just like, people do that in the US? Let's see. Sarah wants us. Yep, there she goes. Dang. She's very strong. Let's see. Oops. Guess we'll grab this. That doesn't help too much.
How did we get on the topic of talk shows? Or not talk shows,
Wholesome
game
stuff.
shows. Well, because we were talking about the cooking show, and then how it was nicer
well,
than
we're talking
the
about
drama.
how stories liking characters, drama, and so on and so
Oh,
forth.
no. Well, we were talking about Altered Carbon, which had the actress that popped up in the game, the cooking show.
Yeah, but we were also
Oh,
just
nice.
talking about the cooking show being wholesome and enjoyable.
Yeah, that too. I just like backtracking just to see where our meanderings have taken us.
Eh.
Okay. Okay. Oh, whoa.
Oh, wow. 2,318 damage. Whatever the math that goes into this game is, it gets silly fast. Bye.
Whee.
Dang. Arawantis is spooky.
Well, I mean, she's out for revenge.
Died. That's, yeah.
Her whole tribe was slain.
This is Doom Guy levels revenge.